I've really been playing around with the idea that our perception shapes our reality. And I did a bit of journaling the other day, and I was trying to figure out why I was getting some anxiety around certain people. And then I came to the conclusion that I have some preconceived set of beliefs about the person I am and about other people. And when I get into the conversations with people, I am then seeing them through the lens of my beliefs instead of seeing them as they are. So say there's a pretty girl in front of you and you've been rejected in the past. Maybe you didn't have a very good dating life in school, you always got rejected, never confident around women. And now you have formulated this idea from all them past experiences that you are anxious around women, or you are anxious around this person. Then you see a pretty girl, or you see someone you find attractive, and then all of a sudden your mind sees that pretty girl as someone that is going to judge you or someone that's going to reject you, because it's interpreted all of your past experiences through the lens of you being rejected. So then you no longer see that girl as reality is. You see her through your own faulty preconceived judgments of what you think she is. And then you go around doing that to everything and everyone, all the environments that you go into, all the scenarios, all the jobs, every person you speak to. You're seeing it through a mental narrative that has been formulated from all your past experiences and all your future worries and anxieties. And this is how our ego's accumulated. It's accumulated from all these thoughts, beliefs, all these interpretations of everything that's ever happened to us. And then we look through the lens of all these faulty belief systems, and we don't see reality for what it is. And it causes us like unnecessary suffering, because that's not what that person is. That person is exactly the same as you. They're someone who has anxiety, has their own insecurities, and wants to impress people. And we're all exactly the same, but we all seem to think that we're all so different and so like separated. And it's just because our egos make us think this. They want to identify us as we are this separate being, when in reality it's just taking you away from what actually is. So a good few practices I've been doing recently are like journaling, like really deep journaling. What do you think about the world? What do you think about certain people? Why do you feel anxious around that pretty girl? Why do you act and behave in a certain way around someone? Why do some people make you anxious? Why do some people make you confident? And you'll start to see that it's actually because some people you feel confident around because you've got a narrative that is you are confident around them sort of people because you've made a story up about them, you box them in a category. Whereas, let's say pretty girls make you anxious. Say there's a really attractive girl and she makes you anxious. You have boxed attractive girls into a category that they're people that judge you and they're people that you're not capable of talking to, which is eliciting the feelings of anxiety. So it's all just a mental narrative. Everything are just these stories we're telling about ourselves, and it's all just noise. All just complete like bullshit that we're giving into in our own minds. And you can start to change these stories. You can start to like dispel them and see through the illusions and start creating new ones and seeing reality for what it is instead of these faulty preconceived judgments. But sometimes these mental narratives are so strong, they're so anchored from our childhood, they have such a foothold in our mind that you need to give evidence to dispel these illusions. And this is this quote by, I think it's Alex Hormozy, where he goes, "You don't get confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having an undeniable stack of proof you are who you say you are. Outwork your self-doubt." And you can convert that into like social situations. You could say like to actually build confidence and build this self-belief that you are someone who can speak to attractive women, you can make friends. You have to actually go out there and put in the work and push past the barriers of anxiety and make your brain realise that scenario isn't actually that anxiety inducing. It's just something that you have cultivated in your own mind. And the more you do this, the more you start to like not trust your own brain. You start to realise that like these these feelings and these thoughts, they're all just faulty perceptions, and they're not you, and you can create new ones. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. Like overcoming anxiety, especially like social anxiety, is so tough because you get this idea in your mind that you need to seclude yourself, you need to avoid social situations, and I suppose you do it unconsciously to a certain extent. And like, you see people, you avert from them, you sit at home all day because you don't want to socialise, you miss the social gathering, you don't go on the date, you don't speak to the girl you fancy, whatever it may be, and all these accumulate in your mind and start giving you evidence that you are someone who can't socialise. And then you start secluding yourself, and then in your mind you start building up the social situations in more fearful ways. You start thinking that they're going to be worse because you haven't experienced them in so long. But when you finally go out there and you speak to someone, and maybe you get the increased heart rate, like you fuck up the conversation somehow, but you have the realization, it was like, oh, dude, I'm still alive, like I'm still breathing, it wasn't that bad. And that gives you a bit of confidence to do the next one, and then you get a little bit better because you realize that the fear is just a fabrication in your own mind again. And then this compounds and compounds, and the more you slowly expose yourself to these situations, the more you train in your brain to realize that this is nothing to be anxious of, it's nothing to be afraid of, it's just a faulty judgment, as I said before. So there's exposure. That's a good way to overcome social anxiety, putting yourself out in situations and letting your brain interpret them as not as anxiety driven. Journaling, like really digging deep into what are the mental narratives I've got around these situations. And also there is other methods, like you can do a lot of meditation. This is the same as like kind of journaling. It's becoming aware of these mental narratives and learning to detach away from the feelings of anxiety. That can help hugely. Meditation was a big one for me, as like it just allowed me to step away from when I was having anxiety, that I could step back, observe it. And when you observe things without attaching to them, they come and go, as everything in reality is flux, is constantly changing. And the only reason why anxiety is permanent is because you're attached to the anxiety. But if you can just like step back and watch it, it just comes and goes. And then you can see an attractive woman there, you can see a social group or a social gathering you want to go and talk to. The anxiety can come up, you can step back, you can go, oh, I'm getting anxious, you can note it, let it go, and then go and talk to the person. Psychedelics were another big one for me, which I'm not telling anyone to do any drugs. This is just education purposes. Psychedelics were just, again, it allows you to take that step outside of the mental narratives that you've got, but this is in a way where it's like, it's just so much more profound than anything I've ever done. And it allows you to, this box that is your ego, it takes you out of this box and you look at it like, say it's here and you're in the middle. Psychedelics allow you to come out here and look at it from the outside, and you can look at all these mental narratives and these behaviors that you're doing and all these like thoughts and beliefs, and you can really see how faulty they are. And you just get a true insight into the oneness of reality when you do it, and you realize that like the people out there that I'm so anxious to talk about, they're not anything to be afraid of, because they are me. We're all this oneness of consciousness. Some call that God, some call it just the universe. Like we're all just these vibrating frequencies and of atoms and whatever is reality. And the only thing that makes us separate is this identification to this sense of self. And you get that true insight when you're into when you do psychedelics. It allows you to step outside of the ego and start like chipping away at the mental narratives and learning new ones. There's obviously other stuff as well, like you could just stop going on social media so much. It can be very like anxiety inducing, especially if you're someone who has a natural tendency to be negative, or someone who's got the natural inclination to always self-doubt. Like you go on social media and you see the highlights of others, you see everyone doing amazing, everyone with a six-pack, everyone with Ferraris, all your friends out doing things that you're not doing, and it just subconsciously reinforces things that you're not doing. It shows that you're lack and they've got abundance, when in reality that is just the highlights of their lives. It can be like carefully cultivated to make them look like they're doing well, when in actuality they're not, or they're just normal people like you. Everyone's got to brush their teeth, everyone's got to go to work, everyone's got to have times in their day where they're bored. But social media doesn't portray that. It's just he's in the gym and then he's on a walk, then he's doing all this productive stuff. So yeah, come off social media. And it's also that dopamine spike that you're constantly getting when you're consuming content. It's taking you away from the present moment, which again is going to get you lost in a perpetual state of thought. And these thoughts are going to be negative because you're on social media so much. So it's like this loop. I didn't actually plan on talking about social anxiety here, but I'm going to keep going. So yeah, it's a process like anything, and it's allowing for your own humanity. I think that's the most important thing. If I could just give you one bit of advice, it is like, you've made all your past choices with the best information that you had at that time, with the best intent that you had at that time. You're obviously not doing things to purposefully make you more anxious or make your life worse. The younger you didn't have the knowledge or the wisdom to deal with that, and you need to show humility for that. You need to show compassion for that, and realize that you're going to make choices that are always going to be faulty. There's always going to be things you do wrong, and you just need to allow for your own humanity, because that's the beauty of being a human. It's just constant failure, growth, learn from this, learn from that. And it's fascinating to watch yourself do this when you can really detach away from this idea of, I need to be this, I need to be that, I need to be confident. And you can let yourself fail, and you can let yourself be anxious and be embarrassed and not talk to that girl, and then talk to that girl, then get anxious. You just really allow yourself to just be, it's okay, like whatever happens, I still breathe, I still walk, I still live, I'm still conscious. So allow for your own humanity. And a lot of problems come from that. A lot of these mental narratives we have is because we're so embarrassed and we're so ashamed of the things we've done in the past that we cultivate certain emotions and feelings around the things we've done, which then affect us in the present moment. But we're not actually being in the present moment because we're living in the past, because we're living by emotions that have been caused by a younger version of us. But this can be broke if you just allow for your own humanity. You allow for the younger you and his failures, and you just think, right, that was Alex doing his best job at that time. He didn't mean to do this wrong, and he didn't have the information or the wisdom required to make a better decision. So I'm probably waffling a little bit now, so I'm gonna shut the Instagram off, shut the video. But I hope you found that insightful. I've got a podcast dropping on Saturday, which is about the 10 quotes that have changed my life, which was a really good episode, 52 minutes long. And then yeah, the podcast is going to start coming back every Saturday. I dropped off a little bit due to, I think, just lack of consistency. I was a little bit lost and stuck in a rut, but back on the grind. The cycle of the rut is finished, and I feel like I'm back moving in the right direction. So it's going to be more podcast episodes coming out. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. If anyone's still listening 30 minutes through in an Instagram video, probably not, but yeah, I'll see you all in the next video, people.